Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be speaking about something that we are all experiencing today, and that is a crisis. Pandemic is a perfect example of a global crisis, a crisis which has been a leveler for human beings on planet Earth. Whether you're rich, the middle class, or you're poor, the COVID-19 virus has been a leveler. It has impacted everybody, if not equally. Definitely, it has caused quite a bit of pain. And it has also allowed us to reset our lifestyle, and it is pushing us to think and reflect about our basic worldview and priorities of our personal and professional lives. But how do we deal with a crisis? Not just the pandemic which we are facing today, but in general, how do we deal with a crisis? Whether it is a crisis in our personal lives or it is a crisis at work in our business, the principles of dealing with a crisis and the tools to deal with a crisis and the mental model and the mindset required to deal with a crisis are essentially the same. Why is that? Because an individual is what makes up an organization. A collection of people is what an organization is. Therefore, if everybody learns how to deal with a crisis with confidence and emerge victorious past the crisis, retaining the learnings, retaining the humility and the knowledge, then it's a win-win scenario. Of course, it is easier said than done. And therefore, we must apply ourselves to clearly understand what is a crisis, what is the anatomy of a crisis, and how to deal with it. It's definitely worth learning and observing and reflecting and trying out today. So let's begin. Anatomy of a crisis and how to deal with it. So here is a framework that I've created for you today. This is called as a crisis resolution framework. So the core of this framework is to understand how to identify from the symptoms whether we are in a crisis and how does a crisis feel, right? Many a time, not just like the pandemic, but many a time in our lives and in our work and professional lives as well as our personal lives, we may be facing a crisis which is creeping on to us slowly, but we are not aware of it. And because we were not aware of it, it then becomes a major crisis, one that we did not predict. So where do we begin? First of all, one of the key symptoms of a crisis is unpredictability. You would find that on a daily basis, things are unpredictable. Your routine may not be the same, and unpredictability seeps in because you are now facing a crisis. Yeah. Second is low visibility. Things are not clear to you. Things are not clear to you because it is unpredictable. Whatever you thought as true and whatever familiarity you developed over the years in your personal and professional lives completely seems to dissolve. And therefore now you're dealing with unknowns. And that is what gives you a lot of stress, internal stress, mental stress. Number three is ambiguity. So you think you know you can solve a problem. However, you are not really clear how to go about it. You may not even be clear what exactly is the problem because you may be dealing with symptoms. So ambiguity is always prevalent in a crisis. And this we observed in the beginning of January 2020 when the global developments were coming out with regards COVID-19. The news was spreading. However, people could not make out whether this is going to be an epidemic, a local epidemic, or whether it's going to be a global pandemic. There was no way. There was a lot of ambiguity and there was a lot of conflicting views. And this is typical of a crisis. Point number 4, a lot of negativity. You would find that when you are in a crisis, there is an onslaught of negative energies, negative points of views, and people pulling you down, and a lot of negativity coming in from the external environment, as well as your own mind giving you a lot of negative thoughts, zapping you of precious energy that you need. So when you feel down, it is because of the negativity you have to deal with. But there is an antidote. So apart from negativity, we may have to deal with debt in our personal and professional lives. Money that we owe to someone else, to the bank perhaps, or if you're running a business, to your investors. So we have to deal with debt and we have to deal with depleting savings. Yeah, the money is always going down. The account balance is always going down because your savings are depleting, because you're in a crisis. And these symptoms lead to fear. And when fear becomes strong, it leads to anxiety. And when anxieties are persistent, it leads to depression. So a complete collection of all these symptoms and feelings is what constitutes a crisis. This is how a crisis looks like. And it's important for us to understand that we are in a crisis, acknowledge it. And after we acknowledge, of course, we have to find practical, simple, effective solutions. So where do we begin? Number 1, the crisis has pulled us in. Therefore, we need to engage in focused effort. Focused effort, not distracted effort. Single-minded, focused effort to alleviate the pain that we are facing. We have to have single-minded approach. A crisis asks of you that you roll up your sleeve and do what the day demands. Do not procrastinate. Do not delay. Do not overanalyze. And do not deal simply in conceptual armchair analysis. You have to roll up, pick up the baton and pick up from whatever resources you have. With focused efforts, start to build in the right direction. So first ingredient, focused effort. With focused effort, you need to define the problem. A lot of people do not realize the power and the clarity that one can gain by defining the problem. So ask yourself, what is the problem? Write it down, articulate your problem clearly. Who, when, why, what, where, how. As many attributes as you can, articulate your clear problem clearly. This is the same in personal as well as in professional lives. People do not articulate the problem and jump to what they think is a superficial approach to solving that so-called problem, whereas they're just dealing with symptoms and alleviating symptoms. It's just like taking paracetamol just to bring your fever down. You have not addressed the infection. You do not even know what is the cause for the fever. So therefore, it is going to repeat until and unless you learn that you're dealing with symptoms and you have to define the problem clearly and correctly. And that is why you need focused effort to do that. Define the problem, then get to root cause analysis. Root cause analysis, one of the simplest way is the 5 why technique, which we have discussed in our previous sessions. So a root cause analysis will reveal to you precisely what you're seeking. Root cause. An objective root cause, not a subjective root cause. It should not be dependent on a feeling or emotion of your like and dislike whenever you're doing a RCA, root cause analysis. You have to detach yourself from yourself and dispassionately conduct the RCA. And then you will begin to form a clear picture of what exactly happened here. Why? What was your contribution towards that outcome? And what were the uncontrollable factors which led to that outcome? And in dealing and doing in the process of RCA, many of these insights come to you, they emerge. And these are important for us to find solutions which are effective. Root cause analysis, and then you will be able to identify the interdependencies. What were the causes? What were the effects? What is the intricate interdependencies of each of the factors which led to a particular outcome? And this is something that you will be able to derive from the root cause analysis. And analyzing and being aware of the interdependencies is the first step towards articulating minutely what are the factors that will alleviate the problem, what are the factors and resources that we need to put in place in order to undo things which are causing the problem, undo the symptoms. And how do you reduce, how do you damage control, and how do you then cleverly reverse your disadvantage into an advantage? How do you create an opportunity from the problem? This you can do if you understand the interdependencies. So, focused effort, define the problem, conduct a root cause analysis, identify the interdependencies, and then once you've done that, begin to put together an effective communication plan. This is fundamental, especially if you are a leader. A CEO's job is 3 C's. Communication, communication, communication. Top down, bottom up, sideways. This is the fundamental job of every leader. So effective communication is extremely important during a crisis as well as in our everyday lives. So put together a communication pack which clearly defines what was the problem, what caused it, what is our visibility today, and how are we going to get to a better scenario, what are the interdependencies, and how to put the effort towards making sure outcomes are favorable by making the necessary trade-offs of resources of time and effort and energy and people and talent to build scenarios and work towards scenarios which we hope will occur. Therefore, an effective communication plan is required, and executing that on a daily basis, an hourly basis if required. The next step is collaborate. We need to collaborate, reach out to people who have other points of view, who have probable solutions, and not think in silos. The history of the world shows that wealth was only created when people started to travel and collaborate with each other. When the cultures and peoples of the world collaborated with each other, that's when wealth was created. That's when value was created. So nothing really can come out from a siloed, individualistic self-centered thinking. But a lot can come about if we collaborate. And if you can collaborate selflessly, then you are going to get infinite amounts of insights and energy which will propel you forward in the right direction and achieve outcomes and innovations and inventions even during a crisis, in spite of a crisis. You will achieve breakthroughs in the best crisis of your lives. So please reach out and collaborate. Nothing in life can be done truly without team effort. ARC. Access right knowledge. This is important to acknowledge that the right knowledge is available with someone else, with some other team. It's not necessarily that we possess all the right knowledge. We can learn, and therefore, in order to learn, we must access right knowledge. So, accessing right knowledge is critical for our success to alleviate the pain and move towards the solution that we are seeking and overcome the problem, transcend the crisis. Next thing to do is engage with people with the right skill set. Engage with the people with the right skill set. So just like you go to a specific doctor who can address a specific problem, you have to make sure that you access the right skill set. A crisis is not the time for you to experiment and try to learn a skill set which you do not possess. A crisis is not the time. When you want to alleviate a crisis, you reach out to people with the right skill set, collaborate, and get things done. And when you're out of the crisis, that is the time you invest in acquiring new skills, in acquiring the skill set that during the crisis you realized you lacked. So, of course, it is situation specific, but in general, when there is something to be done, you have to make sure that you have people with the right knowledge and right skill set, and it has to be done with precision in order to achieve quick deliverance out of the crisis, effective delivery. So, this is what we need to do in terms of identifying, managing, analyzing, and then working towards finding the right solution and overcoming the crisis. And not everything is dependent only on our effort. There are also external factors that we do not control. And therefore, that should be part of our root cause analysis and identifying the interdependencies. And then we strategize and build scenarios to account for external uncontrollable factors like the weather, force majeure, war, pandemic, like the one we are facing now. And of course, what is required to overcome a crisis? One needs a leader, a person who can lead by example. Always bring up the image of Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation, because he did a lot with very less. He led by example. His life was an example. He led everybody by example. So always try to lead by example. Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, very fine examples of leading by example, giving yourself selflessly towards the betterment of status quo, creating a vision which is so powerful that it pulls you up, uplifts you, and uplifts the people of the world. Even after they're gone, they've transcended time and space because they led by example. And create a task force. We spoke about collaborating and we spoke about building teams. So you have to create a crisis task force, a group that can in intense manner focus on the crisis and build execution of strategy tactics on a daily, hourly basis. A task force is essential. And when the crisis is over, make sure that the learnings of the task force and the insights of the task force is embedded within the larger organization, within yourself, so that you can build resilience within your teams. And all the innovations that came out of the task force as well as the crisis management process, make sure you use those innovations to move from 0 to 1 to 1,000, 1,000 to a million, and then a billion. It's always a case, necessity is the mother of invention, always. So a crisis gives you the need for you to innovate and invent. So that is the crisis resolution framework. Now, in order to summarize, the solution always lies within the problem. Therefore, the word crisis, C-R-I-S-I-S, crisis, you can build the solution within that crisis. So what do we need? We need to move towards clarity. We need to build clarity. That's the first antidote. We need to exercise resilience. Resilience, the ability to fight back every time. Never give up, never say die. We should innovate. Necessity is the mother of invention. Crisis gives you an opportunity to innovate. Do not waste a crisis. Innovate something. Simplify. Complexity pulls you into confusion, whereas simplification liberates you. Simplifying is not easy, but simplifying is powerful. So simplify. Break things down. Consume less and try to give more. Simplify your life, simplify your thinking, and you'll access a lot more ideas. Involve yourself, engage yourself. Do not run away from the crisis. It's a brilliant time for you to move to the next level in the orbit. So involve yourself, collaborate and involve others. Mind and hand principle. So when you align the mind and hand with the right intention, your heart, you can, as an infinite being, manifest whatever positive outcomes you want. So involve. And then finally, stabilize. Stabilize the solution. Make it sustainable. Make sure the crisis is gotten over. So stabilize the solution. Like they stabilize people in the ICU and then bring them to the general ward before they discharge. So stabilize. Bring in stability. Work on stabilizing things. That means you have to think about sustainability. You have to think about disseminating knowledge and skill in the broader team. From the task force into the broader team. So there are so many things that we can learn in life, and life always puts you on the path where you can learn even through adversity and crisis, provided you have an open mind and you build yourself always ready and fit to take on a good challenge, because you know that you will emerge wiser, stronger, happier at the end of that challenge. This is the only way nature can conduct metamorphosis on human beings. Just like a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, there is no indication of a caterpillar in a butterfly. It's a completely new version of itself, a more beautiful, lighter, and liberated version of itself. And I wish you that. And I wish you discover the power within you. The magic is within you. And it always takes an adversity or a crisis to introduce you to yourself. Thank you.